Hi, everyone. It's Lynn Davenport. I'm here with Russell Fish. Russell Fish is the spokesman for the Open Records Project, and I'm having him on here today. I've had him on before where we've discussed some issues with a lawsuit in voter fraud, but today we're going to talk about education, which he and I both work in the education space quite a bit. We're not always on the same side of things, but one thing we can really agree on is if there are issues with people preying on children, abusing children, whether it's in the schools or outside of the schools, he and I are on the side of prosecution and we want to bring those cases to justice. And so we were talking, what was it, about a week ago or so? We were talking about the Records project that he has, which I've used before. Just he's shared various projects with me that they've done. They basically file open records requests and they put those out there for the public to see. And so, Russell, anything you want to say to introduce yourself before we go in?
Well, you did a pretty good job. The thing that we're most excited about right now is for maybe the last 2.5 years, ever since we received a whistleblower um, uh, from a parent regarding the abuse of a child, we have been looking into uh, various situations where these kids are essentially preyed on by teachers. And so we started making open records requests on different school districts. And we, we live in the Highland Park ISD, and Highland Park seems to have a series of predator teachers. And so we would make requests regarding these teachers. And we discovered that there was a special ed teacher that was making kiddie porn of an 11 or 12-year-old student. And the superintendent announced it to a handful of parents, but there are 13 special ed teachers. So the superintendent didn't tell the parents who it was. So these parents, there's like 40 special ed kids, and the parents are going, go, oh my gosh, who the heck is this? Who's the teacher that's doing all this bad stuff? And he claimed that the predator teachers had a right to privacy. We thought that was kind of cute. So we do what we always do is we find out who these people are. At the same time, we made a request to the Texas Education Agency to identify this special ed teacher who's making the dirty pictures. And we thought that they would say, "Oh no, we can't do this. They have this right to privacy." But no, they sent us the teacher's identity. Her name was Melinda Stewart, and they sent her the charges that had been leveled against her. And not only that, they sent us 10,000 teacher discipline records on the
So,
entire state. The entire state.
okay, let me interrupt then.
Oh,
So we have a difficult time, we, meaning I with families engaged, we have a difficult time getting the TEA to release open records that we request from them all the time. In fact, one time I had to pay $350 for something that was a public meeting for a transcript because they said they recorded it and they did not. So you're able to get 10,000 records. Do you think that was an accident or do you think that they,
we think we know what's going on
okay.
because we've been making record requests for 20 years from them. And it appears this is the only time this series of records has been released, as far as we know. In fact, we can't find any place in the country that has had this kind of transparency. Based on what other things that we know are going on in TEA, it appears that there's a civil war. And the Civil War is between what we would call the pro-predator faction and the pro-child faction. um, that, for example, um,
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
oh, bless you, dear. Um, the
You said TEA. I
You're
wasn't
allergic to them.
TEA.
So,
Yeah.
so, um, so we get this 10,000. It's a what they call a CSV file. It's a computer file. It's not an Excel file. It's like what you use on big computers, which we have. And so we immediately put this thing up in our own little search engine so that parents could come in and they could type in a name or they could type in a district and it would give all the charges against all the various teachers. About half of those charges were sexual related. There were other things like cheating on exams and assaults and stuff like that, but about half of them were sex cases. And we found at the end, we sorted all of these obviously into districts and so forth, but we found after we sorted at the end, there were about 400 of the sex cases that the names had been removed and replaced with unknown,
Which is
which,
a lie because they do know their names because the
well,
name is
they did know their
required
names. They
in
did
order to
their,
file.
that's how these records were created, is somebody went in there with a name.
Yeah.
And then somebody apparently subsequently removed the name. They replaced the name with unknown. And then they did, with about half of those, they removed even the district.
So you were you able to reverse engineer on some of those?
Oh,
No. Okay. And
once it's
if
gone,
there's
it's gone.
any on the ones that did not have the district removed, were you able to find any kind of pattern, like a reason behind it, or
Well,
maybe a
they were mostly sex cases. I think they were all sex cases.
okay. And so, but was there a disproportionate number in public or charter school or any district or anything like that?
I'm not sure that we
Find a
can look.
pattern there.
I'm not sure if we can look at the name of the school and tell if it's a charter or not. That they lumped the charter and the public schools together. And
In the
well, wait a minute. You are correct. There were about 30% of those that were at a charter school. Yes.
Okay. So I have my own theory. It may be different than yours, but within the TEA, what I've seen is that Mike Morath has restructured it from because he's been there for 8, 9 years, going on 9 years, and he was appointed by the governor. So when he got in there, he restructured it. He put in new deputies. So his top cabinet is mostly Teach for America charter school proponents. And so the reason I asked you about if there was a disproportionate number is because I would not be surprised if they were not only charter school people, but possibly even those who were placed in the schools through Teach for America, which they're not trained.
I couldn't hazard a guess. This is
And
like
that's fine. Well, we don't have to go down that kind of rabbit hole, but it's something to consider because he's hired so many within the TEA that they might be capable of going in there and changing that. So
I suspect that the security on TEA is about as good as the security on the Secretary of State, which is awful.
yeah, and we have evidence of that because the woman who's the CIO of the TEA, the information officer, whatever her title is, she said she stays awake at night because the data and the systems are not secure.
I would
Prone to hacking and everything.
I would
So who
say
knows if it's
that
internal or external? What you're saying is you have a pro kid faction and a pro abuser
we call it pro predators because
a predator,
the P's alliteration
right?
easier to remember. Uh,
Yeah.
but we had we were we've been following maybe a couple of dozen cases, but one on one. And we've been following Ian Anderson, Aaron Anderson, I believe, at
Yes.
is it Texas
Scorecard.
Texas Scorecard, I believe,
Right.
who's done a great job, also covering many of the same cases we were, and she had a hypothesis that there might be as many as 200 of these predators in the state of Texas. Instead, it's 5,000.
Well, where do predators go? They go where children are. So
They go to where children are.
I mean, they
Exactly
go
right.
to churches, they go to our camps, they go to after school programs, and they go to the public education system and the charter schools and even the private schools. So yes, unfortunately, that's the case. So this is, but what we're talking about here is a government agency that is one of the largest, one of the largest education agencies in the nation. And they are concealing the identities of child predators. So this is not an
Well,
attack
only on that small group. Only
only
on
that small group. Yeah, right, right. So why?
the bigger picture is you can put any school district that you want in, and you'll
Yeah.
get
Okay, well, I'm
and
going to do that while we're sitting here because I want
okay.
people to be able to see how you can go to openrecords.org. You can plug in your own districts. I'm sharing the screen here.
Now that is I believe that's the third. There, there are stories that are in blocks. I believe this is the third block. We put it up. We keep it up near the top because it's one of the more popular stories. And it's not really a story; it's a search engine. Yeah, there. That's what the home page looks like. And the first one is the whistleblower. Um,
Okay, so I went to the third one here
yeah, just
and
click it.
yeah. Okay, so basically, instead of entering a name, which you can go in here and you can enter your ISD. So I could do Richardson. I'll do that real quick. And it pulls up all of the cases. And what's great about this tool is that it gives a definition of the case code. So if you look over here, DRIS, VSCH. So the sexual ones are SXIS,
If you
XSIS.
scroll down to the bottom, you can actually get a English list. You see where it says case codes? Just click that.
Yes. And so this is very helpful to be able to decipher what are all these codes. But you're saying that the majority of those, or wait, what was it? You said more than half or
Well,
of the 10,000 or
well, there's 10,000, I think, in 75 or something. It looks like about half of those are the 1.1s, the 1.2s, 10.0s, 11, and so forth that are the sex charges.
Okay. And then just as a sidebar, so what we found with Families Engaged is that the school districts, there are two different ways that they operate when there's a crime, is that if the police department reports to the superintendent, we have a much bigger problem. So, for example, in Dallas ISD, a special ed teacher was murdered by a student. That was concealed by the media. And because they have their own police department within the school district, then they're able to do that. No one knows. Brett Shipp clued into it and did a big story about it. The other way is you have your police department, you have your schools, they have the school resource officers, but the crimes committed are not taken off the books. They're counted like a regular crime in the city. I think I got that right. But
Well,
it's a huge
if they're
problem.
reported by the ISD police department, they usually disappear.
Well, and so that's the problem that you found with
That's
Highland
one
Park.
of the problems we found.
Yeah, so in the Highland Park case, so I'll go back to your here. Okay, so like in Highland Park,
Just
well,
put in Highland or Highland Park. You can put it in either way.
so there was a principal who
Down at the bottom,
Michael Lewis
Michael
who had sex
Michael
with a
Lewis.
student. Yeah.
Michael Lewis.
And then the Highland Park police, what did they say or do about that? You want me to click on that?
Well, if you go back, I can show you.
Mhm.
I can show you. Actually, I can show you. Okay, go back one more
Mhm.
and back to the homepage. Okay, and you see where it says, I believe it's pedo party pooped again. Click on that one.
Not the superintendent hides pedos.
Okay, now it's the clown looking thing.
Ugh. Yeah. Okay.
Click on the clown.
Mhm.
Okay, scroll down and let's see. What I'm doing is I'm looking for the
Here it
okay.
is. Okay. Public narrative. They typed it in twice by Sharon Jones, and Sharon Jones is the police chief or
No, Sharon Jones is the uh, University Park public relations person.
Oh,
The
okay.
entire city got involved in this.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
And I meant if you go back, this is the second story we did. If you go back, I'll show you the correct story that actually has the police report.
Oh,
Just
you mean
hit,
back in
just
the.
hit the back. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Now go over to where it says superintendent hides pedo's identity. Go to
Yeah.
the right. Okay. Here's University Park Police Department. And that's the report that that officer, you've got it so small I can't read it. Jessica, whatever it is. Yeah, there we go. No, James Schellinger was the investigator. It appears to us from what incomplete information that we have is that a parent discovered this and called the police department, and the police department sends somebody over. The superintendent finds out about this. Is the statute that the police officer
Hmm.
cited.
Okay.
And I'll let you read it out loud. It makes me sick at my stomach to read this.
No, I don't want to read it out loud, but the gist of the problem is that the police department works in conjunction with the school district, and they cover up crimes that way.
And this filing disappeared.
The filing for
The
the.
filing that you just read, that doesn't exist anymore. It's gone.
And so did it disappear before it got to TEA or after?
We think about the same time because here's the way that school districts work. And I think, as you know, we have a couple of whistleblowers inside TEA now, and I spent several hours with one yesterday. And this individual explained how the discipline files work. We're looking at the discipline files here. He says the
Did he
discipline.
currently work for them, or did he previously work for them?
He. I don't want to
It doesn't
identify,
matter. Doesn't matter. Okay, he gave you some clues on the codes and the language.
he worked for them. Yes, he worked for them. He doesn't work for them now, but he worked for
Okay,
them. And
perfect.
but what he explained, he said the essentially the discipline files are a method to keep predator teachers out of jail.
Okay.
I thought I'd let you think about that for a while. That is very concerning.
See, and let me interject here that I have talked with, there's a lot of demonization of teacher unions because they're left leaning and they get politically active, some of them. But when I talk to them offline, they don't like this stuff at all. They do not want to be associated with pedophiles and those who harm children. They don't like being labeled that, and they want due process, but they also want justice. They don't want their peers being allowed to get away with this. They don't like pass the trash. And so I think I need to say that because most teachers are not pedophiles. Most teachers are not abusers. But unfortunately, as technology increases, as our society is degrading by the moment, we're seeing more and more cases of this. And that's the unfortunate truth and the reality that we're dealing with right now. Russell and I are talking about the government agency, and we are supposed to have open government and transparency in issues like this. And the superintendents and the district employees by law have to report these crimes and offenses, or else it's a felony. And I know you listed in your registry, you've got a superintendent. I think it was Highland Park or no, where was it?
Highland Park is one.
It's one that they've committed a felony for not reporting.
Yeah, but if you commit a felony, it's kind of like if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound if nobody's there to hear it? If nobody reports it and complains about it, it doesn't exist. Tom Trigg failed to report.
So he was the previous superintendent of Highland Park.
Previous superintendent.
He's gone after sealing. And also school board trustees resigned as a result.
John DeLander, who was the chief of staff, was gone the afternoon that we published some of the kiddie porn that the superintendent denied. Then the superintendent was gone, Tom Trigg, and then let's see, Tom Sharp, who was the president of the school board, resigned. He was on some of the documents that were circulating inside the district that we were able to get a hold of.
I know.
And that's um,
So the board tends to conceal these stories and they know about them, but they conceal it because of the perception from the public. If this gets out, they do the cleanup crew. John Dollander was with Dallas ISD and then went to Highland Park ISD. Now he's back at Dallas ISD. Am I correct?
you're correct. Yep.
Yeah. So I know these people. I mean, there's another version of pass the trash. Well, okay. So Russell, I want to go into the unknowns, and so we can type in this.
Yeah. Make a capital U and then everything, then unknowns.
Okay, so you type in unknown, and it will pull up this list, and it'll show you the ISDs that have all of these unknown perpetrator or
Yes.
pedophiles or abusers.
Now,
Okay, so
we're still trying to understand what, in fact, the CPS report means. I was discussing this with the ex-DEA guy yesterday, and he was indicating that that means that a report was made to CPS, but that's not what it says. It says referral source. So we don't know. We still don't know what that means. We don't know what question mark 461 means. So we're somewhat in the dark there. But this unknown reminds me very much of what we saw when we were doing the 2020 election analytics of the Secretary of State's database, where they had voter IDs, they had names of voters that had voted, but had voter IDs of zero. Well, that's kind of a problem.
That's interesting that you found that.
Oh, we found all kinds of things. I mean, that's when you there's a number of anomalies that are in this data set as well. But at the moment, what we are trying to do is get as many parents looking at this and saying, "Oh, I know that person." For example, when we were looking for Melinda Stewart, who was the special ed porno maker, we were just looking for her identity. And so TEA sends us these 10,000 and we immediately put them in our database and sort them. And there's the assistant principal of the high school who's been charged with a relationship with a minor like 2 weeks earlier. We had no idea.
This is that guy that you're saying?
This is Michael Lewis. Yeah, Michael Lewis.
Oh, okay. So now we've got the list. We have the ISDs and most of these, right? But there you said about what?
Well, just look at the bottom. They're down at the bottom.
These are the ones that don't say.
Right. Is somebody, these were records that were created at a certain point. And if you're going to create a record, you have to have, a name and a.
These are all recent, Russell. These are like 21 to present.
Well, we got the last 4 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, whoever sent this to us did us a huge, huge favor, because now absolutely we know that the numbers are not 100 or 150. They're thousands. And we also know what happened to many of these.
How do you know that?
Well, look over on the right, the second to the right column where it says DNO. That means that when it was submitted, now these are supposed to be submitted by a superintendent. So they're submitted to TEA, and somebody just said, we're not going to investigate that.
What does DNO stand for, you said?
Do not, let me take a look.
Not open.
Do not open. Do not open is what it says. That means
Okay.
do not open a case. Do not open a case.
What does this N know for on the right side here?
That means, okay, the right side is the do not hire registry. This is really interesting too. As you look at the cases and there's, I don't know.
Oh, do not hire registry. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
600 or 800 statutory rape cases and stuff like that. And there's only a handful of these teachers that the discipline is do not hire. I mean, there's only two things that you can do as part of discipline. These are most of these are felonies. So what the heck happens? They go through some sort of judicial process and so forth. What happens to them? Well, the worst that can happen to them is they lose their certificate or they cannot be rehired. That's the worst. How about some jail time?
Holy gosh. So, okay, and so in the other,
And that is the way the scam works here. Um, uh, Put in Prosper, and we can look at a case that's one that really bugs us um, because it was preying on 5 and 7 year old girls. Um, you misspelled Prosper, I think.
I doubt it.
I,
I didn't.
I can't see it. PRO.
PRSPER.
You did misspell it.
Oh, so what do you think that is?
Well, a quick search.
PROSPER? How do you,
I'm sorry, what?
it's PROSPER, right?
Prayer. Pros. I think.
Let's see.
Just click search.
Oh, you know why? Because I didn't take out a note. That's why. It's
Hit
just there's no.
clear and it would clear it for you. But just hit search.
I didn't hit play.
Okay. Now
Mhm.
look at the third one from the top. You see who that is? You see the name?
Holly Joe Ferguson.
Okay, you know who Holly Joe Ferguson is?
Do not.
The
Oh, the
super the,
superintendent.
the
Yeah.
superintendent.
Because it's a felony for not filing the complaint.
Right. But it's also a felony for aiding and abetting a sexual assault,
True. Okay.
which is way more important.
All right. So
So that was the first thing. That was the first thing. Is she oversees and enables this bus driver who is repetitively sexually assaulting these little girls, and on video, he is on the video security cameras for 8 months, and the mom complains that something's going on with the girls. The girls are crying, the girls are upset, and so forth. And Holly says, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." Well, Holly doesn't take care of it, and a week later, there's apparently some sort of physical damage. Mom calls the cops, and the cops come and immediately arrest this guy.
Hmm.
And of course, Holly Joe doesn't report her misbehavior as well as the school bus driver's misbehavior. And then, of course, the rest of the story is they're taking him off to the courthouse for arraignment, and something happens, and he slips and falls out a window to his death. Uh, so
Slips
we
and falls out of a window of the courthouse?
yeah,
Are
and
you
kills
serious?
himself.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm
And
on the
kills
phone.
and kills himself. He's in
Oh,
shackles.
I see. Yeah, so he committed suicide. Ugh.
Well, that's what they want you to believe. We don't know. So we immediately asked for the records of this quote accident and including the videos. Well, the video cameras weren't working, battery was dead, whatever. It's kind of like the Epstein thing, and we're still making these requests and trying to work around their objections. Now, so somebody, possibly a parent, complains to TEA, and that's how she gets in here because normally she would be the person that puts in the complaint as a superintendent. Well, of course she doesn't.
Somebody filed a complaint on her.
Somebody filed a complaint on her.
Okay, and
Exactly.
likely a parent who learned the law and realized, oh,
You're right. Now, parents have no idea that this document that you're looking at, or even this process, exists. Most of them have no idea that it exists.
yeah,
It's possible that this was a school board member. We don't know. Um,
somebody.
the Now the school board had its own problems. It's kind of ironic. The parents rioted, and
This is all in the news.
that was in the news, exactly. So the parents rioted, and then the next board meeting, the president of the board um, decides to take it to the parents and tell them that they needed to be more respectful and blah, blah, blah. And 2 weeks later, he's arrested for sex with a minor.
And what was his role?
He's the president of the school board.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay, so when I ran for school board, there was this guy and he was obsessed and he was tweeting from a fake profile. But come to find out, he was the president of the Northwest ISD school board, and he was also a former employee of Richardson ISD. That's why he was mad at me, and because I was exposing some of the shenanigans in the district, and he ended up getting arrested for sharing.
Have you looked him up?
Oh yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
have you looked him up on our
Mel
database?
Mel Fuller. Mm-mm.
Okay, well, it'd be interesting to see what's
No, but he
now.
was arrested, and I don't know how he ended up getting off, but
I'll tell you how he ended up getting off.
he's not in jail, and
They're almost never in jail. Go back to
excuse me. Hmm. What? Go back
go
to the
Holly,
what?
Prosper. If you still got that up, can you still share the screen?
Mhm. I can, yeah. Hold on. Teacher discipline, share. Okay,
There we
what
go.
now? Go to what?
On the third line, you got Holly, and a 12 is a failure to report superintendent or principal. Um, then you got Prosper ISD. Then you have you have 3 dates, and then you have INV. INV means I think that's INV is pending. I don't know why it still says pending. INV CWH. CWH is administrative closure. Oh wow. So they found they made some sort of ruling. Then you read over to the next column, it says investigation was closed without further action against educator. They closed the investigation, no record, no nothing. So this woman who oversaw 100 sexual assaults of these little girls is still superintendent, still walking around. This
Wow.
is very common. Now, the way that the game is played, and the TEA guy explained it. He says the people that become, if a parent asks about a, uh, uh, a criminal filing, they say, "Oh, we're public schools, so we have our own discipline system." Now, I happen to have the records that explain how this works. Let's see if we can get. There you go. This is the record. It's called Disciplinary Proceedings, Sanctions, and Contested Cases, and this describes the bad things that teachers can do, but it also describes the penalties. Now, so the superintendents tend to make the criminal charges go away. That's certainly what happened in Sarah Reeves' case and Melinda Stewart's case and Michael Lewis's case. All of those, the criminal cases went away. They just disappeared. Now, what that means is this teacher ain't going to jail. It then goes into this administrative process, and where the worst that can happen is they lose their license or they are unable to be rehired. And now, what this person told me was they will have a do not hire, and but they can appeal, and they will be able to be rehired, and they will get their certificate back. It's perfect. It's perfect. By
Wow.
the Go ahead.
So, well, I'm just thinking of all the cases that, I mean,
That were in the news, that were big deals. Then you come back a year later,
so many more that just get off scot-free.
they get off scot-free.
Okay, so now that we have this unprecedented release. Normally we can't get stuff like this. And I've
That's correct.
complained to the AG's office and Paxton's handler, and I've said, we file these public information requests and you do not release them. And it goes to the district and the district rejects it. It has to go to the AG's office for, their review, and then they rule on it. And 9 times out of 10, they do not rule on the side of the taxpayer. And so I have to either pay crazy amounts. Like one they wanted was $900. This is information that should be public. Most of it should just be out there,
It's
but we're having to
public.
do
Most of
what?
this stuff is public.
Yeah. But see what I'm saying is they're allowed to conceal it. And we've got supposedly the best AG in the nation, and his office is protecting the state rather than the taxpayers, and the transparency is not there. So I think there's this misconception that Ken Paxton is fighting for us. Yeah, he may be suing, these agents or these people. I'm not saying he's not doing those things, but this is a very serious category that
It is.
and we can't get the information. So I would love for his office to explain to me what law, because I could name probably 10 that say the opposite, that protects the taxpayer. But what law are they hiding behind, that says, oh, yeah, y'all can just,
We
y'all
can
can
hide
just
the
do
names of
this.
the perps.
Huh?
Uh, now, uh, to be fair, actually, that's the wrong word. Um, we have experience with both the Secretary of State office and well, I guess NTEA and the Attorney General. At the very top, there appears to be very little transparency below the first two levels. Stuff can go on at the bottom. Guys at the top have no clue. And it's not because uh,
I see. Right. Because it never makes it to, it's not like Ken Paxton is using his stamp and going, approved, not approved. It's not him,
right.
right? Okay, he's the big guy. It's his people in these lower tiers. Exactly. But why are they not doing it? And where, yeah, okay, so I know you and I come at this from different angles. I know that you do a lot of work in the school choice space, and these cases uh are just fuel for the school choice dollars following the child. Child's being abused, you're like, give me the money, let me get the heck out,
Well,
right?
the part where you and I agree is, I think we agree, is that there are two ways um, to change the behavior of the miscreants in public schools, and there are a lot of them. There really are a lot of them. I can't.
Right. And
I
the parents have the choice right now. The biggest way that you can defund is to pull your butts in the seats funding and take your child out. But I
if you
understand.
pull your child out, your money stays. You get the kid,
True, but
and
you're talking about penalizing and changing behavior. Well, if there's no butts in the seats, the behavior will eventually change. But what I'm coming at it from is from a parental rights standpoint, and being able to uh to to use the law to fight the lawlessness. And if we can't even get basic information and the truth from our government, and we have no transparency, and there's no teeth in the laws, like what do we do with that? And so,
I'm sorry.
that's
Do you think that the superintendents care whether there are butts in the seat or not? They don't.
they're, if you listen to them now, because the enrollment's so low, yeah, they do care because
Let me correct that.
Mhm.
State doesn't care because the state gets your money when your kid's butt is in the seat or not.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
Now, the other thing that I think is incredibly important and exists, we also work peripherally on both the Boy Scouts and the Catholic Church, more on the Boy Scouts than on the church. But uh, those people went to jail, and we need to have some superintendents going to jail. I mean,
Yes.
if you are
Fantastic analogy. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter what space. A crime is a crime. So whether it happens in a public school or a private school, yeah. If
whether it happens in a private school, if you do some of these things that are listed, if you're in a private school, you're going to jail. There is a no waving your hands and you get a note on your file or something. You are going to jail. Now in
they can
public,
conceal things too.
I'm sorry,
So
what?
they can conceal
Yeah,
situations.
they can't.
They
They can't,
legally have to report
they
too.
can't go to district court and conceal
Mhm.
looking for the
Well,
Hey, so we have from McKinney, you go to district court, you file this document, and in fact, we have it online, and there's nothing that can be done. Now, the other area that we are looking at that is even a bigger picture than the school districts themselves is that the rule of law has broken down in many of these cases. There
Yeah.
is collaboration between the teachers, the principals, the superintendents, the ISD's police department, the city's police department, the prosecutors, and in some cases the judges. Now, if you're a,
All colluding.
I'm sorry,
All colluding, you're saying.
all colluding. Now, this is not all areas, but this is we have found this more often than not. And you're a parent. What do you do, particularly if you're a poor Hispanic parent, because we're finding that in a lot of these cases is the kids that cannot fight back. For example, if you're a special ed kid and you're not verbal, and many of these kids are not verbal, they can't really tell you what happened to them,
No,
and,
but
or it will take a while. And so as a parent, what do you do? You're mad. And in the case of McKinney, it wasn't single moms, it was dads, and they were really mad. They chased that bus 25 miles. It's heading to Mexico, and they're in their F-100s zooming down I-75 trying to catch it. Now, if that happens again, enough people probably know that they're not going to get any help from PD. There's a likelihood they're not going to get any help from PD or DPS.
no.
And it would not be unusual, it would not be unexpected for one of those mad dads to get that bus to stop however they can. And in fact, I don't know if you probably have this. Have you got this? Can you see what that is?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's 554 pages from the Department of Justice. I read the whole thing. Not one word is cowardice. Not one word is cowardice. That is why those kids died, because of cowardice. Now, why are those state employees, municipal employees, ISD employees, well, why are they still employed, for one thing?
Yeah.
And now take that and then apply it to the sex offenders. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Russell, why is the media not touching this story? And have you shopped it to the media?
We have shopped the school sex problem several times. Only once has anything happened. Actually, twice. And the second time, somebody else shopped it. The first time was Epic Times. There was a reporter at Epic Times that had heard from a parent or something, called us and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And we said, "Well, there's this crazy, insane woman who thinks she's from another planet, and she's also transgendered and variously, dangerously mentally ill, and is going to commit suicide." And she goes, "Really?" She goes, "Can I go? Should I go get a statement from the superintendent?" I said, "I think that's a great idea." So she goes to get a statement, and of course the guy lies to his teeth. She comes back and says, "Hey, I talked to the chief of staff, and the superintendent says, never happens, all BS. You've been talking to the Open Records Project. You've probably been talking to that Russell Fish guy. He's the worst one."
Ah.
He says you're a liar. I said, "Really?" That's when we put up some of the dirty pictures. That's when we put up the suicide manifesto. And that's when, and John DeLander was gone by the end of the afternoon. And then, of course, Tom Trigg was gone. But that's why superintendents tend not to talk, because if they're speaking, there's a good likelihood that they're lying. And if they're lying, we usually have the receipts, and we will nail them on it.
But okay, so is there a partisan issue that you could, or there's a partisan nature to this rejection of
I don't
exposure?
think this is like the question we were asked on the election stuff is, did you think Donald Trump won or somebody else won? And you can't see that on the election stuff. You can just see whether the votes were tampered with. You can't see how somebody voted or not. But if you have, like we had in 2020, we had, I think, 108, 109,000 votes that were tampered with, that were changed.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not, you can't just separate it by party as far as the cheating goes.
well, in the
Even
voting
though,
thing, we could, but in the because you could look at uh, precincts, and some precincts were more Democrat than Republican. In the sex offender thing, I'm trying to think. Oh, related to that is we've been asked is this related to the sexual grooming and the transgender thing? And you can't,
no, you can't.
probably related to the grooming, because the Boy Scouts and the Catholic Church, they're all grooming these kids, and the same thing is probably doing. A kid doesn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to go have sex with my teacher. That sounds like a really good idea. That's not what happens.
No,
They
it's
work on them
slow
over pretty
screaming.
much. Now, on the transgender thing, we have one, Sarah Reeves was transgender. We're not sure what she was. She was multi gendered. The Melinda Stewart, it appears, was lesbian, and Michael Lewis, it appears, was I'm going to say normal. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, so you can't find a pattern there. So then I guess the why I was asking about the partisan thing, because if both parties don't want to touch the story and you're not getting anywhere with either side, I have some ideas on that, because as a whole, it would be those on the right who are sounding the alarms on the abuse in schools, and those on the right who are championing school choice could potentially use some of these cases to plead their case. But because the TEA is run by the Republican governor appointed our TEA commissioner, and there's a bipartisan agenda to privatize the schools. It's not just the right doing that. And Marath is at the helm and leading the charge on that. But within the TEA, you have both a right-wing agenda and you have a left-wing agenda within that. And I think,
yeah, I don't know about that.
but well, I think,
All I know is there's some individuals in there that are doing their best to cover stuff up, and then there's other people that are trying to get it out.
yeah,
That's
and but you're not going to be able to find party lines on that
no.
if both sides are pushing the charter schools and they're covering up for the charter schools. But then you've got the ISDs with layers and layers of protection that can't be labeled as partisan, because these chiefs of police and these they
Highland
can't find a
Park
rhyme or
was
reason on
supposedly heavily conservative.
it. What
Uh,
is? Sorry,
yeah, it was supposed to be. That didn't seem to bother anybody. You said something about 10 minutes ago about the board knew about this. No, there were actually three members of the board that knew about it.
Mm.
And we know that because we have all the board's emails.
Yeah.
And, Tom Sharp, let's see, Mary Jane, Bonfell, and I can't remember who the third one was. Those are the ones
Because
that,
look, these board trustees are often they're locals who are groomed for the position. And
that's
and then they have a certain image that they want for the board trustees, and they have to be cheerleaders and
yep.
pro district. They're not really looking at the role as a fiduciary that's there to steer the outcomes of to positive
To be
academic.
fiduciary responsible.
They're cheerleaders. They're PR. They're not. Our board president was the cleanup crew. I called her the bounty quicker picker upper. Karen Clardy was a cheerleader. Yay, happy talk. Everything's great in Richardson ISD. And same deal. Like They don't want any negative press to get out there. But here's the thing, the predators know that they can do this, they can get away with it. And then it undermines those teachers who are working to actually help the students, to educate the students. And you've got these people working with them. It undermines the whole system. And it's not fair. I mean, I cannot imagine going to work with somebody who is, is
Have
guilty.
you ever worked in a company like an Enron or where you have massive amounts
Or
of fraud going
Harper
on?
Anderson, which
Okay, yeah.
imploded because of Enron. Yeah,
Well, they don't exist anymore, as I remember.
I know they imploded after the the
Uh,
scandal.
well, when you're in and particularly if you're in like a C level, you are probably going to keep your mouth shut. And because if you don't, you're going to lose your job and you'll probably get blackballed in the industry.
Mm.
And that's so some of that goes on in the school district, I'm pretty sure, because all of the teachers are not pedophiles. There's a small percentage, but it's
No, most are not pedophiles.
yeah.
Most,
Uh,
majority are not.
no, I would
Safely
have, these are people that I've met with some of them and before they knew who we were.
say-
They are very strange people. They are very strange
Oh, some
people.
of the people that have
Some
been,
of the pedophiles, very
yeah.
strange people,
Yeah.
and some of them are just psychotic and can't tell the difference between reality and not reality. You remember Claudine Gray, that was the Harvard president,
No.
got fired for being anti-Semitic and testifying before Congress. One of the congressional leaders said, Dr. Gray, that statement you just made is not true. Her response to that was, I have my own truth. And that's the way these people think. That's called postmodernism. And those are
Yeah.
Marxists. They can rationalize anything.
Yeah, I agree. Well, so, all right. Well, I think we've covered everything. I think this is valuable information that if a parent can use the tool, it's an excellent tool. I appreciate you and the work that you do with all of these tools. And anytime I have something I need you to investigate, then you're always helpful. And I appreciate that. There's
I am at your service.
too much to cover. Yeah. No, but I mean, the bottom line is we, the people, should be able to have access to open records and open government and transparency. And we can't do that if they're concealing these things. And we certainly can't protect our children in these, whether it's the public schools, the charter schools, it doesn't matter if we can't, if we cannot have confidence that our not only the TEA but also the school districts are being honest with us, then what do we do? And so I hope that somebody picks up this story and does something with it. The TEA needs to be accountable to those parents who have filed these complaints, and they need to investigate it and do something about it. And the TEA has been given enormous power through the legislature, and I'm concerned about that. But any closing
Yeah,
thought?
I think what we're going to do is
Russell?
we're going to publish a booklet that has the photo and the bio of every legislator, every senator, every House representative, every Republican, every Democrat. And underneath that photo is going to be all the names of the child predators in their district, because we've got them.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because they don't need to pass more laws. We're overbilled. We don't need any more bills. We actually need to repeal bad bills and bills that don't have teeth. And we already have laws on the books that are excellent that are not being followed. And we have policies in our school districts that are not being followed. So I think that passing new bills is not going to really solve anything if we don't have consequences that are enforced.
Yeah, well, one other thing is that what we are watching is we're watching our civilization de-Christianize, and the Judeo-Christian behavior is what glues civilization together because um, it's what tends to encourage truthfulness. For example, when you testify in court or you take a your oath when you're governor or school teacher or whatever, that oath is supposed to mean something. And at the point where it no longer means anything, and you're just like Claudine Gay, as I have my own truth, you have no civilization anymore. You cannot lend money, you cannot trust people, you cannot get married because
Your
no
word doesn't mean anything. Your
moral
oath
truth.
doesn't mean anything. It's all just words.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Excellent point. Okay. All right, Russell, how do we find you?
Look up in the sky.
It's a bird.
Records.org. People, the easiest way to get a hold of me is hit on the whistleblower, and it will eventually get to me, usually. And we get a fair amount of whistleblowers. About, you know,
Mhm.
a lot of them are nuts, but we try to research everything
Okay.
because we want to help parents. Thank
Okay.
you, Lynn. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much. And hopefully we can get some stories out there for this and have some people brought to justice.
That's, oh, there. Love that. We love justice.
Thanks, Russell.